we have students that we need to really engage. Let's, this one. We want to, as our aim, use innovative strategies to work smarter, not harder, to be able to engage, for teachers themselves to be the change that we want to see in education. And there's such a plethora out there. Everybody's talking about AI and blended learning. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to use what works traditionally and share what really works as teachers. So we'll cover quite briefly the complexity of teachers' work, navigating that currency of each and every individual teacher's context to see how that leads us to our innovative strategies where the innovation is impactful. So first up, complexity of teachers' work. We can see the demands of the classroom at the top there. Quite a cycle. Professional aspects. We have professional development. If we don't do at least 20 hours a year, we can't get re-registered as a teacher. We also have annual capability performance plans and administrative factors there. I teach 657 different students a week. So my senior students in a primary school only get an hour lesson and the juniors get half an hour lesson. So it's quite a lot of administration. Societal and systemic impacts, we'll look at those in a minute. And work-life balance, what time you've got left, you want to have a family and enjoy your life as well. So demands of the classroom, this is just a visual. We see all the different types of things. Roya addressed all these diverse learning styles and students' needs. Students' interactions together form group dynamics. Why have I got weather there? I don't know if you've heard the saying, mad as a March hare, but every time it's windy, our students are all over the place like mad March hares. They're primary school children. They've got a lot of energy, and that impacts on the environment in the classroom. So having a look at societal and systemic impacts, right down from political to parental, it's data-driven, all of those. Twofold in putting that up there. Is that a bit of cognitive overload for you? Because that's one of the things we need to consider with students. Here are a few points that many people don't think about. Since COVID, in primary schools, many teachers, not just Australia, in other countries are reporting that kids are fidgeting, have a much harder time focusing. And in discussions, we've had little kids talk to us about what's this war going on. And we realised when they were in a long lockdown in Australia, they were privy to all kinds of scary kinds of conversations. So the home learning altered children's perceptions of classroom listening and responding. Many of them feel entitled to come to school and speak the way they might have spoken at home, but teachers have different expectations. It's classrooms. And technology became the norm, so we had to undo that a little bit. And with an average of 27 students in the class, we had from Arthur Overton in the 60s and 70s, his research showed us that children won't learn unless their state of mind is enabling them to learn. And Jim Quick, you could look him up on the internet, he recently popularised this principle. So most recently, John Hattie's metadata showed us that in classrooms, it was the mind frame of the teacher. Mind frame is Hattie's expression. It simply means the mindset of a teacher is the foremost agent in educational change. And it's what drives the engagement of students, which we'll see as we go through. So this circle around the student centre, the student engagement will happen when the teacher creates the environment and the design. So what we talked about with the political effects, etc., it goes right around. We can have proactive responses, and we need to understand the research behind student behaviours. If we look down at the bottom here, we see student behaviours are responses to what's going on in their life. And here, if we work through that circle we just saw and understand our current students, where we get that information from, you need to know your school's dashboard, whether it's a national dashboard, that you can get information of the different learning, not learning styles, but learning needs of various children. Once you understand that, you can empathise and build rapport. Environment, if you've got politics of the time that only wants to focus on literacy and numeracy, languages is going to be right down on the budget. And if your own leadership at your school doesn't give you what you want, you need to be proactive, work around it, know that today you've got students to teach, so focusing on that negativity is not going to help you at all in the classroom, and proactively and get on with doing what we need to do for the best of our students. Decluttering, we've got a very crowded curriculum in Australia at this point in time, and it's not getting less crowded. Teachers need to know their curriculum so that they can take out the achievement standards. Remember who our audience is, young children who need to be active and moving and creative, so that we can work to each and every one of our own students' proximal zone. And that's where differentiation, AI helps us as teaching assistants to be able to eke out a design that will differentiate for all those kids. And if we understand the research, current research on cognitive load, etc., we've got the reasons for our design choices. We know from that research that explicit instruction with our current children, the research is currently showing us, current kids, explicit instruction and comprehensible input works. The cognitive load theory, with all those other anxieties and underlying environmental effects from whether it's family, whatever's happening in children's minds, 1 to 4 pieces of information. We need to be mindful of how to design tasks that will address that. And memory is integral to learning. So one of our aims is to teach children how to learn, how to be better learners, so that we can move any information into their long-term memories and educate them on how to do that as well. And just because we as a teacher think that it is comprehensible input, we have to get frequent feedback and set up maybe a thumbs up from children that is very quick, so that we can gauge whether it's comprehensible input or not and work around that. So let's see some examples of classroom activities. And these will show how knowing and understanding your current context and all those aspects we saw there works to engage children. We do blended learning, but we want the traditional activities that work well to stay. What's this here? I teach Japanese. Kamishibai. In the achievement standards, I needed to have children be able to describe events or to describe people and be able to have certain grammar. I also have a number of students who have a variety of learning challenges, and I looked at what was currently written that I might take as a guideline. And I thought, if that's boring me, I'm wondering how it's going to eke out what we need with these children. Let's take a look at this next child. Apparently, I have to go back in and activate. I do have a yeah. So, and
Mutashi Banashi. Pikachu des.
he's a grade 4 child.
Tirori des.
Not the good pronunciation there. Tiroides. Owari.
Owari.
Owari. Now, if I tell you that child has not spoken for 6 years, he was a selective mute after a car accident that his family was involved in. And I didn't know that. Me understanding him as a child, I realized all of the little Pikachu stickers that he had on his pencil case. And I talked to him, not with him, because I didn't get answers about Pikachu. And I didn't know this was going to have such an effect on him. He asked me, could he take his iPad outside, so he's under the trees there, and he recorded himself so that he could show his mum when he got home. And she cried, and she agreed then that I could use his video. And that's knowing your children, and yeah, that was a nice surprise. So what we want with children of this age is, yes, to be able to use AI, and we do teach the children AI, but we also have many other digital tools that we work with. But less screen time than when they were in lockdown, and more play. So let's have a look. Here's another one. Intrinsic cognitive overload versus extraneous cognitive overload. The child that was on there, that didn't work. Let's look at hair share anyway. In Japanese, there are many more vowel sounds shortly after each other compared to English, and the students there are doing a pretty good job of wrapping around those by practicing with their friends and getting rid of all of that external pressure, and just being able to get used to their own voice in Japanese, because sometimes you get that language anxiety from some of them. So let's move on to the next one. Here, same thing. They're working in pairs with a student of their choice. It was Joe Vansell that said a number of times over the last couple of days, give them something to do, was his phrase. And that's what I've been doing for some time. We see here, this child is quite a reluctant Japanese speaker, but when he's got something in front of him, these children have coloured in, colour-coded. Anyway, you'll see there's quite a number of things going on here, from numbers to asking questions. So, oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
Sun.
Asking questions, answering questions. Scaffolding up an ability. This covers quite a few things. The curriculum itself doesn't have questions and answers in it. It's all content based with various topics. And so through the Paku, I can get the students to learn to ask questions and answer questions so that when we have visitors, visiting students from Japan, they can function in Japanese rather than just their curriculum. Let's go on to down the bottom here. Motivation doesn't just happen and then they put effort in. It's through that active with children, the actions they're using, the success they're having because they've got scaffolding and they can do it with their friends. Or when the dopamine's released because they feel like they're doing a good job, that drives further motivation. So that's why I get my students not just to work with their iPads, but to work online. Moving to senior students, these are the spelling rules that they all have in the back of their books. So up at the top here, the blue and white, that's just the basic. There you can see every consonant except N must be attached to a vowel. So it's more of a syllabary than an alphabet in Japanese. To get hard consonantal sounds, you take the soft sounds characters and add 10, 2 little marks, up 10. Then there are combination sounds in this colourful part at the bottom. An explanation. If you want to double a consonant, you need to use a small tsu character. They are all rules. When I say I have a 1-hour lesson with my seniors, by the time they come from G block way over there to the opposite end of the school, I'm lucky if I get 50 minutes a week. And maybe they're on camp or at a dance I Stedford. So I tried to find a way, and this is it. This is inverted in. No. And then have the hiragana for Pikachu. I think how to learn. One of their goals for second was to look at the language discourse. Metacognitive. That child that just did this on the test, he's a diabetic. I have this class from 12:30 to 1:30, 1:30. It's also got dysgraphia. So the other student.
The kanji for October.
This is where you try to design.
10 years time.
They're learning to work with all of the charts. And
First country.
They're getting right into it. Sarah, is it Sarah Basin? This earlier today, she said that when you get those iPads in front of or digital work in front of many kids, the child themselves go into aeroplane mode. And I have found often, even though it might seem like something exciting, you can't get responses like this from working digitally. There's a time and a place for digital, but children are children, and we don't need to be going all out digital. We need them to be children and get the soul. This is the soul that I said this morning that we need students to have so that they can feel in control. iPads and digital screens are two-dimensional, and I think many people forget there's only the 2 dimensions, and you can't get that. So that was another activity. AI, ChatGPT helped me to produce that cheat sheet. These, I won't play the video because we're running out of time, but these kids are playing Guess Who in Japanese on their iPads. That's a place for their iPads. They quite enjoy that. This is just something that people have come up with, the authors there. Pedagogy wheel. iPad plus pedagogy equals pedagogy in this, guys. If I played the video, which I won't, these icons on the purple part, right around the outside, if you hover your cursor over any of those icons, a pop-up will come up, an interactive pop-up that will tell you what it's useful for. And there's a lot going on. I'll just do this next one. Both of the schools that I work at use this Seesaw platform as our digital platform for learning. We don't do all the learning there. As you saw, the classrooms are quite active. This is just my library. You can see it says Miss Spicer up in the corner there. When I go into my library, these are all lessons that I have personally created on folk tales, how to work with your iPad. The year sixes are creating comics, the year fives, their favourite place, they get a choice of it. So we are doing blended learning to a small degree, and we only have a maximum of 2 hours a day of screen time for children. It must be, as everybody else has said, fitting in with what they're doing. The technology needs to show that there is some kind of transformation in their learning, or it's pointless using it. The content and the pedagogy, does it fit in with what you are doing and what your aims and their achievement goals are? This is Mahatma Gandhi saying we need to be the change. As I said earlier, everything has to fit into your own institution's breakdown of things. And finally, if more teachers and students develop positive mindsets of going about learning in a way that brings out the soul in children and gets them active and really engaged, then the students themselves will become future-proofed. They'll be able to use the digital work and to know how to learn themselves. And we, as the teachers on the front line, we're the ones that create the well-being for the students at school and for ourselves, because if we didn't have that understanding of our current context, we'd probably go insane. Many teachers are leaving the profession globally. And education leads to confidence if it's done well, and society prospers in that way. Thank you.